right, and welcome back. We are live here at Seven Springs Winery on Lake TV. We've now got the Prosecutors debate coming up. This is the one that everybody's really been excited about. I think this is going to be a really good debate. I'm just going to go over these debate rules once more, and then we'll be off and running here. This debate is structured so that it does not promote or advance any one candidate over another. The use of technology during the debate, such as smartphones, is prohibited. Time limits on statements, answers, rebuttals, and responses will be enforced by the moderator. A display time card indicating 10 seconds remaining will be utilized, which is right here in the front. Candidates are not permitted to use props or visuals of any kind. They can, however, take notes. The debate is divided into subject areas. An example would be budgets, campaign positions, background and experience, etc. All candidates have been provided with the general subject topics to be debated, but not the questions. Moderators will present a question to a candidate and will allow rebuttal responses from their opponent, as well as follow-up to the candidate. All right, and we're going to announce we have attorney Lynne Brand, who is running for prosecutor, challenging the incumbent, Richelle Grovesnor. And we're going to start off here with a 2-minute opening statement. And Lynne, you get to go first.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, this evening. I appreciate you all coming out to see us. I appreciate participation and interest in what's happening in our county. I'm excited to be running for prosecutor, and I would love to have the opportunity to improve things and just ensure that everyone's voice is heard and that we have a better rapport with all law enforcement and members of the community and victims, and I believe that I can make that happen. And so I would appreciate your vote on August 4th.
Thank you, Lynne. And Richelle, you have a 2-minute opening statement.
I'm Richelle Grovesnor. I'm the current Camden County prosecutor, and I'm going to tell you that running for office is really, really hard. I want to congratulate all the people from yesterday and today that chose to do this. One of the main reasons that I think this is so hard is because when you are a legitimately good person and then you decide to run for office, everything you say, people filter through the lens of you're running for office. And so my first priority is my relationship with Jesus, and second is my family. And so why am I running? Why did I run in 22? And why am I running now? Because of my children. This community gave my children opportunities that I don't believe that they could have gotten anywhere else. Our son went to high school. He wanted to go to college on a cross-country scholarship. He got to do that. Our daughter wanted to go to the United States Naval Academy, and as many of you know how hard that is to do, this community gave her the opportunity to do that. When my son made it to college, he found a wife, and we now have a granddaughter. When Grace went to the United States Naval Academy, she found a husband, and when she graduated, she got to be congratulated and was able to shake the hands of J.D. Vance. Now, for her, that was a big deal. She was a Trump fan since before she was even able to vote, but J.D. Vance was a really nice second. This is what the community has done for me and my family. I am a 25-year trial attorney, a criminal law attorney, 15 years of that as a prosecutor. This is my way to give back to the community, to show up to work, to do the right thing, to be the prosecutor that you can be proud of. When I started, I built a team. I recruited people. Your Camden County Prosecutor's Office is some of the best prosecutors in the state. And we'll get to talk more about that as we go along, but I would appreciate your vote in August.
Thank you, Richelle. And question one, just keep that mic. Richelle, it's to you. What is your standard for filing a criminal case? Where do you draw the line between filing charges or asking for more investigation? You have 2 minutes to respond.
Many of you know that my very first job was right here in this area as a public defender. Within the first couple of months, I had 3 jury trials because I went to my boss and I said, I want to be a trial attorney. My family all lived in Marys County, so that community recognized my desire to be a prosecutor, and so I was appointed within 1 year of passing the bar as the Marys County prosecutor. Me and a secretary. And I tried cases, I served our community, and what you learn over time is that when you are making charging decisions, that you have to understand that the police can arrest on probable cause, and the prosecutor's responsibility is to be able to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the judge, when I was the Marys County prosecutor, was a defense attorney turned judge, and he taught me something very important. He said, the stroke of a pen, as a prosecutor, you change people's lives. Can you imagine if your son, your nephew, somebody that you cared about, a prosecutor with probable cause, signed on the dotted line that your loved one committed a crime, a sexual crime against a child? As the prosecutor, you have to have judgment, you have to have experience, you have to know, is this a case that we would file based on probable cause, and we can continue the investigation and make this case, or is this something where we have to wait and we have to collect more information? Our communities are great in protecting our children. There's child order protections, there's children's division, there's the juvenile office. Prosecutors' offices should never rush to making a charge against someone, because you can absolutely destroy somebody's life if you're not careful.
Thank you, Richelle. And Lynne Brand, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I agree that you can destroy someone's life, but there's other people's lives who are involved in that decision. So while we need to make sure that we are making great charging decisions where we have enough information, the prosecutor's job under Supreme Court Rule 4 3.8 says that we are not to make any charges that we do not have probable cause to believe they did that. So we do have the same standard as far as what we can and cannot file. And I think that what we need to understand is that that discretion that we have, we may need to get more information before we make that decision, as Ms. Grovesnor said. But I think that there's more than just the defendant's life on the line there. There's a victim who we need to be explaining things to and making sure that they understand what needs to happen in the case, and also just make sure that we're doing the right thing. And that's really what our job is to do the right thing.
Thank you, Lynne. And Richelle, 1-minute follow-up.
So of course the job of the prosecutor is to seek justice. Whenever you go to prosecutor training, that's what they teach you. Seek justice, seek justice. That's a very broad term, right? What does justice mean? And having the experience, knowing the people in your community that can make sure that people are protected, make sure that people are safe, to allow the prosecutor to make the accurate charging decisions is critical. And so it comes down to being able to, it's what I call, you have to know what a case is worth. And when you have experience and you are able to do that, I recently read an amazing article that called the prosecutor the conscience of the community. And I really want you to think about the prosecutor as being the conscience of the community as we seek justice and make sure that what we're doing is the right thing when we do it.
All right, thank you, Richelle. Lynne, this question's for you. The prosecutor's office employs, on average, 20 employees with a $1.7 million budget. What experience do you have in supervising employees and managing large budgets?
So I don't have a lot of experience in that area. I have managed my own law firm where it's me, and I've had many, assistants that are in my office with me. But for the most part, it's just been my office, my budget, my employees. And I have done a good job of managing that on my own. I obviously don't have a $1.7 million budget at my disposal in my office. And I think that it's important to really manage that well and make sure that you're not spending more than you need to on things, and just to really, have a common sense approach to what we spend money on. I mean, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, we just planned a vacation. Obviously, everyone has some experience in budgeting and knowing how to manage money and take care of things. And so I think that it's just something that you have to look at on a monthly basis to make sure that you are spending the money that is given to you by the county wisely.
All right, thanks, Lynn. Richelle, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
So as your elected prosecutor, I run the prosecuting attorney's office like I did when I was in private practice. We run it like a business. But if you are going to work for the prosecutor's office and you are going to think that it's a government job, you are going to find that you are not going to have a job in the prosecutor's office anymore. We care very much about the fact that these are taxpayer dollars that are being used to support the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. The other thing, just to kind of touch on budgets and money and fiscal responsibility, that something that I want you to understand about my husband and I, kind of back to the political comment, we fund our entire, every time I ran for office, my husband and I have funded that. Because again, fiscal responsibility, and I never want anybody to think that we received money or that there was anything about a campaign donation that impacted a decision. So financial responsibility is both ways for us.
Lynn, you get a 1-minute follow-up.
Perfect. I agree that we need to make sure that we're spending money wisely. At this point in the campaign, I'm also self-funding up to this point, so I understand the importance of that as well. And I don't want to take money from anyone and let that be something that even has the appearance that there would be something where I'm affiliated with that person and have to do something that they would say. That would never happen, and I just want to assure everyone of that. But as far as running an office and managing employees and managing a budget, I can do that.
Thank you, Lynn. And the next question number 3, is to Richelle. In the Wisdom child molestation case, charges were dismissed because of alleged chain of custody, failures, and evidence mishandling. Critics say there was a taped confession and witness statements that was ignored by you. These critics argue your office publicly shifted blame to the sheriff's office after this emotionally charged case collapsed. Does your office bear any responsibility for the outcome? 2-minute response.
So I do understand that the Wisdom case has been in the news. Again, the prosecutor is the conscience of the community, and we are here to seek justice. And so if you saw in the news recently the Darren Skinner case, employees of my office are the people who saved the Darren Skinner case. He is now in federal prison on child pornography charges because of employees of my office who put that case back together. Those same people reviewed the Wisdom case, and we met with the sheriff's office. I want everyone to understand that. Everyone was on the same page about the problems with the Wisdom case, the problems with the evidence, and what the result was going to be. Everybody in the room, employees of the sheriff's office, employees of the prosecutor's office, everybody understood that that case could not move forward. And as the conscience of the community, we cannot hold somebody in jail when we don't have evidence to prove them guilty. So here's what I want. Lynn's the attorney for the sheriff's office. Lynne needs to go back to Chris. Get me a couple names. We have people right over here, law enforcement. Get me a couple of names. We will agree on somebody. We will bring them into the office. They can sign a confidentiality agreement. They can review the evidence. It is a lie that there's a signed confession or a victim that can testify. That is a lie. And if the sheriff and Lynne do not move forward and give me a couple of names of somebody who can independently review that and make a statement to the public, then you all, as the public, will know that it is completely false, because it is, that there is a confession and a victim that can testify. If they decide not to do that, you will know that that is where the lie has come from, and never from the prosecutor's office.
Thank you, Richelle. And Lynn, a 1-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I was not involved in the Wisdom case, and I don't have a lot of information about that case. I understand that Richelle is offering this up as a way to throw a lifeline to the sheriff's department to try to fix that, and I'm happy to be the go-between and ask the sheriff if there is someone who could come in and do an independent review of the evidence. At this point, I don't know that it's ever going to be possible to move forward with that case, just based on the amount of information that's been given to the public at this point. But if we can move forward with it, I would be most happy to make that happen. I do think that the most important thing to learn from the Wisdom case is not just whether it should have been dismissed or not dismissed, but the way that it was handled, I disagree with. I think that there should have been some internal handling of that, and it should not have been so public that the county and the citizens of the county lost faith in both the sheriff's office and the prosecutor's office in the disagreement on that case. That's all.
Thank you, Lynn. And Richelle, 1-minute follow-up.
Yeah, I'm not talking about getting together to move the case forward. The sheriff said that the feds are going to prosecute that. It's not a prosecutable case. The feds are never going to prosecute that case. What I'm suggesting is that the public needs to understand the actual reality. We had that meeting. We all understood that that case could never move forward. And then all of a sudden, a public statement about there's a confession and a victim that can testify. I'm sorry that somebody came out and lied to the public. I absolutely hate that. I don't want there to be questions about the criminal justice system, ever. But that never came from my office. My office never, ever said it was a prosecutable case after the sheriff's office had messed up the evidence to the extent that they did. So the ask is, have an independent person tell the public, be transparent about what the truth is, and if they don't, then we'll know that there is no confession or a victim that can testify.
Okay, thank you, Richelle. Lynn, you are promising to restore relationships with the sheriff's office. Several high-ranking members of that same sheriff's office are publicly supporting you, and you are currently employed by the sheriff's office as its attorney. How can voters trust that you would be able to remain objective and fulfill your role as an important legal gatekeeper of the criminal justice system?
Okay. Because that's the job of the prosecutor. The job of the prosecutor is to have a good relationship with all law enforcement, not just the sheriff's department. And I think that you have to have that. And my role right now at the sheriff's office doesn't really have a lot to do with criminal cases. It has more to do with ensuring that they are following rules and procedure and advising them on things. And sometimes I advise them on things and they don't like what I tell them. And that's the same thing that would happen as the prosecutor. It's your job to be that go-between, be the link that is able to review the case, look at the case, tell them whether or not there's enough evidence there to move forward with a viable case. If it's a viable case and it just needs more investigation, then you tell them that and you give them the opportunity to do that so that then you can move forward ethically with that case and filing it.
Thank you. Richelle, you have 1-minute rebuttal.
Recently, the sheriff went to a commission meeting and said, in the commission meeting, you can go back and look, that she had a conflict in running for prosecutor and being the sheriff's attorney at the same time. She needs to answer whether or not she's still employed as the attorney for the sheriff's office or not. My understanding is that she is. So what happened to that conflict? And I know that Facebook land says that if she wins, she won't have a conflict being the prosecutor on the sheriff's office cases. Yes, she will. And you, as the voting public, have to understand how expensive that is going to be for our community to have to get a special prosecutor on the cases. She has a duty to her client, who's the sheriff's office, which is not the same as being the prosecutor and your obligations. It is going to cost a fortune if she wins in special prosecutor money because of her conflicts.
Lynn, you have a 1-minute follow-up.
I would disagree with that. I don't think that there's a conflict with that any more than any other prosecutor talking to any of the law enforcement about a case. I don't represent them in criminal cases. That's not my job. So my job is to advise them. I do that. I am still employed with them. They are seeking to find someone to replace me if I get the job as prosecutor, obviously. And so there were some negotiations about that, and obviously that's going to happen, and I understand that. And if they want me to stay on until that happens, I'm fine with that, and that's what we discussed. I don't think that there's a conflict in running and doing that. I think it shows really that there's the ability to communicate with them and advise them and just be able to have a normal conversation and trust.
Thank you, Lynn. And question number 5 is to Richelle. Richelle, your own published media policy says prosecutors should avoid statements that could prejudice cases or comment on witness credibility. Did your public comments about a detective being unreliable violate the spirit of your own policy? 2-minute response.
No, I think that as far as transparency goes, just like Roland was talking about with that job, prosecutors have very specific rules as it relates to pending cases, things that we can and cannot talk about. But I want to be as transparent with the public as I possibly can. We had conversations, we meaning me and my staff had conversations with the sheriff's office about Detective McGuire and the problems that he was creating for the cases. You have to understand that when prosecutors come to work, we want justice. That's what we want. And Cody McGuire is quite simply getting in between us and being able to get justice on these cases, period. And we talked about that with the sheriff's office. And since then, he's been promoted. So I don't understand what the sheriff's position has been on Cody McGuire, but why would you ever keep somebody in a position where they have access to cases that are going to be the problem in the case? And what I simply mean by that is that when a case has him involved, the defense attorneys will always make the case be about him, and it will not be about the defendant. And none of us wants that. Again, seeking justice, there is no justice when the defense attorney gets to make the case be about a person, a detective, and shifts the focus away from the defendant. So it's an effort to be transparent. I'm not done. I have more that I have to talk about with the public to be transparent as it relates to the sheriff's office. But keep in mind, the only issue is the sheriff's office. I work with 9 other agencies. Nobody has any problems except the sheriff's office. And she's their attorney, by the way, and she's running for prosecutor, so go figure.
Thank you, Richelle. And Lynn, 1-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I'm not exactly sure how to respond to that, other than just to say that I'm not running so that I can rubber stamp cases from the sheriff's office. That is not what I'm doing. I am running because I believe that there is a need to have a better relationship with law enforcement overall. And I know that we like to make statements about things, and I don't know if there are other law enforcement agencies out there that have issues with the prosecutor's office. I don't know that. You can say lots of things, that doesn't make them true. Just like I don't believe that there's going to be an excessive expense in having a special prosecutor come in and prosecute cases in the event that there were a conflict. And that can happen with anyone who becomes a prosecutor. It's just inevitable that you're going to have I'm going to have some kind of interaction with some party in a case. It happens with prosecutors, it happens with judges, and we move on, and there is a way to deal with that.
Thank you, Lynn. And Richelle, 1 minute follow-up.
I talk to law enforcement officers all the time from all the different agencies, and we work really well together. If someone was really interested in being the Camden County prosecutor, that should be the first step, is talking to law enforcement outside of just the Camden County Sheriff's Office. And just to come back, she stated that she's not in criminal cases, but the case that I had to be transparent with the public about Dakota McGuire is the Anthony Lane case. She filed motions on behalf of the Sheriff's Office in that case, which is a criminal case. So how can you say that you're not in criminal cases when you're filing motions on behalf of the Sheriff's Office? Motions, by the way, to keep the prosecutor's office from getting the evidence that we ethically have to have. But she is in criminal cases, and I don't understand why she said she's not.
Okay, thank you, Richelle. Lynn, how do you approach the decision between negotiating plea agreements or taking cases to trial? And what principles guide and inform that choice? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I think that everyone obviously wants every case to go to trial, and that's just impractical. That can't happen. That would not be a good use of resources in the prosecutor's office. So plea agreements happen so that we can move cases along. There's nothing wrong with plea agreements as long as you are essentially getting to a point where the punishment for the crime is sufficient to deter that individual from recommitting. And in addition to that, to tell the rest of the public that, hey, this is what's going to happen if you are charged with this crime. Essentially just creating that standard of this is the way things are going to go. As far as whether or not to do a plea, I think that if it's appropriate, then you do that. If it's not appropriate, I think in every case, you can make an acceptable offer. It may not be an offer that the defense likes. I've certainly in my practice been made many offers that were, you have to go to trial at that point because the offer's not good enough to warrant not having a trial. And so I think you always have to be prepared to have a trial, but there's nothing wrong with getting a conviction through a plea.
Thank you. Richelle, you have 1 minute rebuttal.
Plea agreements are simply part of the system. Lynne's never prosecuted anything that I know of in her career, and that's going to be very challenging if you don't know, like I said before, what a case is worth. If you want to spend 99 cents out of every dollar that you make in taxes, we could have trials on everything. We could keep people in jail pre-trial for years at a time, but nobody really wants that. And the purpose of prosecutors and trials is that when a defense attorney says, my client's not taking the deal, we're trying the case, prosecutors have to be able to say, let's take it to trial. And they have to have the experience to do that. I've never heard Lynne say that she's ever had a jury trial ever in her career. Please correct me if you have. But those are complications from being the elected prosecutor. If you haven't tried a case, you have to be willing to do that to make sure that you can hold the offenders accountable.
Well, Lynn, you're going to get 1 minute follow-up.
Thank you. So no, I have not prosecuted cases. I worked administratively, which was similar, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have experience as a prosecutor. I do not. I have experience as a trial attorney, and I have represented lots of clients over the years and had many, many trials. And in the process of that, you do evaluate cases and find out what they're worth. It may not have the same criminal elements that she's talking about, but a case is a case, and you either have the evidence or you don't. I've never had a perfect case, and so sometimes you have to weigh whether the evidence that you have is enough to warrant, taking it to trial, or whether it's better to settle for something a little less than that. The same thing happens if in the situation of a prosecutor. As far as a jury trial, no, I have not had a jury trial. I had a case set for a jury trial. It was a first-degree murder trial, and the prosecutor's office dismissed that case about a week before the trial was to take place because, you know, my office had done a really good job in going out and collecting evidence and making sure that we had evidence to prove that there was a reasonable doubt.
Thank you, Lynn. And question number 7 to Richelle. You requested security upgrades, rekeyed locks, and cameras after learning detectives were secretly recording you and other prosecutors. What specific security threat did you believe existed? 2-minute response.
So we've asked for multiple security upgrades. I'm sure you can imagine that as prosecutors, the defendants and their families don't like us. Listening to jail calls, the inmates want Lynne to be the next prosecutor because our office is successful and we do a really good job. Victims occasionally get mad at us too because sometimes we end up with a victim who wants to use the criminal justice system to aid in their divorce, for example. So sometimes they get frustrated with us. And sometimes law enforcement gets frustrated with us as well. There's a legit death threat against me right now from a defendant's father. And so we've asked repeatedly for security upgrades just so that my staff feels safe whenever we leave. Many of you have heard me talk about court going until midnight sometimes. Just last week it went until 9 o'clock at night. That can be scary for people who leave. We literally have an exit right next to where the jail exit is. And so we have asked for that. The purpose of these security upgrades as it relates to the secret recording, that's unprecedented. You don't have a detective ever come into a prosecutor's office and secretly record a conversation with the prosecutor. You don't ever do that. That is unprecedented, particularly when the purpose of the meeting was to go over the detective's problems in prior depositions as it relates to his ability to manage evidence. And so by secretly recording in my office and then by secretly recording in their office just a few days later, and then she filed to run for prosecutor a week later. I mean, all of this stuff, like secret recordings are not part of the political climate in Camden County ever. I mean, the purpose of the upgrades for my office as it relates to the secret recordings was so that we would know who was coming in and out of our office. If you're willing to come into my office and secretly record me in a way that's going to negatively impact my ability to do the job, then I want to know who's coming into my office.
Thank you, Richelle. And Lynn, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I think that having security issues goes with the job of prosecutor or with really any attorney. There's lots of attorneys who have been injured or harmed by clients because, let's face it, nobody likes attorneys. So I do understand the security issue. I do not understand how that necessarily relates to the recordings. The recordings, I think there's probably, I would like to know what upgrades needed to be made in order to make the office safer. I think that you do have a way to know who comes in and out of your office. And so if that doesn't already exist, I would hope that it does now. But I mean, I don't think that recordings are something that's really new to Camden County politics. I think that there were recordings the last time that we had a prosecutor elected. So quite honestly, I don't think that anyone should be surprised by that. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. But
Thank you, Lynn. And Richelle, 1-minute follow-up.
Yeah, so before we asked for the security upgrades, the only way we could know who came in and out of our office was by asking the sheriff's office. And of course, their employees are the ones who secretly recorded us. And again, I just need to make sure that the point is very clear. Those secret recordings have negatively impacted countless cases. Cody McGuire specifically worked on cases with child victims. I'm sure you saw the article this week, or last week, I'm sorry, relating to the extra money it's going to cost, because we had cases that were set to plead, And because of those secret recordings and the information that was on there, those defense attorneys have withdrawn their agreement to plead. And so now we have to do depositions on all those cases again. Those secret recordings negatively impacted the prosecutor's office ability to seek justice and negatively impacted victims.
Thanks, Richelle. Lynne, what is your position on publicly disclosing misconduct by law enforcement if it could damage a case or public confidence, but may be ethically necessary under Brady disclosure requirements?
Obviously, you have to follow the law, and if there's an actual Brady issue, then you have to disclose that to defense counsel. That's the job of the prosecutor. There has to be, and this goes back to there needs to be a better relationship between the two offices. If there's something that you believe is an issue, then you should go to that office and you should talk to them and find out if there's a way to remedy that through some sort of additional training, some way to preserve that officer and keep them there. And I'm not talking about something serious, I'm talking about something small. If that officer can be preserved, then we want to keep them there. If they cannot, then absolutely there needs to be something done where that is disclosed to the office, that you need to write a letter to the law enforcement agency and let them know that you will not be prosecuting those cases. So I would agree with that, but it has to rise to that level. And I do not believe that it should be out in the public for everyone to know about. I mean, obviously, we talked about how filing charges against someone could ruin their life. Obviously, saying those things about an officer could ruin their life, and they would be out of a job and probably out of a job anywhere else. So I don't think that it's something that should be a knee-jerk reaction because you're upset.
Thank you, Lynne. Richelle, you have 1 minute rebuttal.
Chris Edgar took office January of 2025. After he won and before he even started, I was having conversations with him about problem employees, specifically two. I was told multiple times that the problems were going to be taken care of, and both of those people, instead of the problem being taken care of, they've been promoted, both of them. I've had multiple conversations with Chris. Many of you know, we worked together in the prosecutor's office. He was the investigator. He was my friend when he ran. But it is not the prosecutor's responsibility to police the police. We're supposed to bring this to the police's attention. And by the way, we have done this with multiple other agencies, and they have fixed the problem. The sheriff's office is the one who, instead of dealing with the problems, promotes them. And she's been the attorney. If she was interested in fixing this, she's been their attorney this whole time since before Chris even started.
Lynne, you have a 1 minute follow-up.
So my job as the attorney for the sheriff's office is to advise them when they ask me. I'm not going to insert myself and tell them what they should do. That's not my job. My job is to advise when asked. I can't just go in and make them do things. Obviously, if they ask me, I'm going to advise them, and there has been some times when they have asked me questions. And I filed motions because there was a subpoena, and they had asked me to file something to quash that subpoena because the information on the recording had to do with many other cases, not just the one. And there was never an issue with providing the information to the prosecutor's office, which did happen. And that was what I told them to do. I said, you have to give it to them. And so the motion was really just to keep it out of that one case. So it wasn't that we were trying to not give the information to the prosecutor's office, and I realized that it was interpreted that way.
Thank you. And question 9 is to Richelle. Republican voters nationwide worry prosecutors have become either too soft on crime or too politically motivated. How would you describe your prosecutorial philosophy in practical terms, not campaign slogans? 2 minute response.
I'm telling you, your Camden County Prosecutor's Office has a fantastic team. If you're voting for me, you're actually voting for us. It is an amazing group of people that I worked to recruit with decades of prosecutorial experience. My team is not going to be Lynne's team. You need to understand that. I would like to know who she would bring in as her team, because it's not going to be my team. Me and God have conversations a lot, and I laugh because I'm an introvert, and I don't have time for fake. And this is the job, God, that you want me to have, is running for office as an introvert and somebody who doesn't do fake. So I'm giving you facts, I'm giving you information. That's how I operate. That's how I run the prosecutor's office. Seeking justice is the job. That's literally why we show up to work every day. If you see me get mad, it's because somebody is interfering with our ability to do our job. But the prosecutors are the ones who have to sit down with these victims and their families and explain, I'm so sorry, but this case is going to turn into being about a detective and not about the person that hurt you. We all remember Mark Furman. We all know, anybody over the age of 50 knows Mark Furman. We know what they did in the OJ trial. That's what we're talking about. I don't want to give political statements. I want you to know that we show up and we do our job, and we do it really well. I brought our felony convictions. This is 1 month, the first month that we started. These are all convictions. Camden County Mo, prosecutor.org, you can find these. You can see the kind of cases that we have. You can see the sentences. A lot of drugs and alcohol, of course, but there's burglaries and there's tamperings and there's crimes against children in here. We don't prosecute crimes against children. Somebody in here in January got 30 years. Julie Roden, by the way, she's an assistant prosecutor. That was her case, 30 years. Please go and look at our actual felony convictions and the work that we're doing, and you'll know that this is not politics. This is just us doing the job.
Thank you. And as a reminder, no props or visuals allowed. Lynne Brand, 1 minute response.
Thank you. So I think your job as a prosecutor is exactly that, to do your job, to prosecute cases, to ensure that the community feels safe by the way that you're prosecuting those cases, and that victims feel like they have been heard and understood and know the process, and that, you know, if something's going to go bad, you need to call them yourself and you need to sit down with them and you need to have that hard conversation. But I know that the last time we talked, just to, you know, not to use props, but the last time we talked, there was a lot of numbers talk. And so I went and I pulled records and looked up how many cases there are. And it's pretty easy to figure out how many cases are on CaseNet because they each are assigned a case number for every criminal case. So in 25, you do 25 CM, and then you do CR, and then there's 5 more numbers after that. And so in 25, there's roughly 1,400 cases, maybe a little more. But you can find out how many there are, and you can ask the clerk's office for information on how many files there are, and there's about 500 felony cases filed every year.
Thank you. And 1 minute follow-up to Richelle.
Lynne doesn't understand criminal law and criminal procedure, and I understand that because she's never had this job before, but that's not how you track cases. We charge approximately 3,000 cases a year. She's looking at ones that are just not accurate. But again, highlighting the felonies and stuff, that will be on our website, but it is on average between 2,500 and 3,000 cases that we process. Camden County's different. We have a lot of felonies. We have a lot of serious crime. It's not like Laclede County where their numbers might be the same, but they're on I-44, so you have a lot more traffic. Ours are a lot more felony, like I said, drugs and alcohol, of course. But please get the accurate information whenever you are researching. And by the way, Lynne's just been lied to. She's been told it's an administrative job. Camden County Prosecutor's Office has so many cases. The elected prosecutor is never just an administrative job.
Thank you, Richelle. Lynne, why should voters elect you as prosecutor? What specifically will you do differently or better than Richelle?
Well, I do believe that I have the experience, despite what Richelle believes I've been told, what I've said. I can do the job. I don't have prosecution experience, but I do have trial experience, like I explained. I think that those skills transfer. Being a lawyer is being a lawyer, and it transfers. And I do understand how the law works, and I understand how CaseNet works, and I understand how criminal cases are filed. I would just take a different stance on how cases are handled within the office. I think that there should be some systems and different mechanisms. I appreciate the new website. I looked at it while I was on vacation and saw the mug shots that are on there. And I think that's helpful. I think that does give the public a sense that things are happening. But I think that realistically, I think that you just need to get in there and do the job on a daily basis and have, good communication with victims, have good communications with all of your witnesses, regardless of whether they're law enforcement or the Camden County Sheriff's Office or some other law enforcement office. And no one has told me that the job is an administrative job. I fully expect to be prosecuting cases. That's why I said I would do this. So thank you.
Richelle, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
The best way that I can explain it is kind of in the medical field. If you needed a brain surgery and you are confident in going to your foot doctor to do your brain surgery because they're both doctors, you should absolutely vote for Lynne because they're both doctors. We're both lawyers. But like I said, she doesn't have a fundamental understanding of criminal law or criminal practice. And so it's easy to say words like, I talk to law enforcement and I would talk to victims. Are you confident with having your foot doctor do your brain surgery? The answer should be no. And we should not place the Camden County Prosecutor's Office in the hands of somebody who's never prosecuted before, never done any jury trials before, doesn't have relevant experience. It needs to stay with the people that can do the job and have been doing the job.
Lynne, you have 1 minute for follow-up.
So I think that was a very simplified metaphor. I'm not a foot doctor asking to do brain surgery on anyone here. I'm just asking to be able to have a shot at doing the job as prosecutor, and I think I can do it better. I also believe that there are cases out there, and we talk about experience and how I don't have experience being a prosecutor. Well, I've never done a jury trial, but if you look and see how many jury trials have been won, there's not that many. So I don't know that the experience that she's talking about is necessarily getting the results that the voters want. So I would just encourage all of you to do the research, look and see what cases have been prosecuted, what has happened, how many jury trials have been won, how many jury trials have been lost. Thank you.
So now we're going to go to closing statements as we get ready to finish this part of the debate. There are going to be 2-minute closing statements from each candidate. Lynne, you're going to start with your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone coming tonight. And again, just thank you for giving me the opportunity to get to know everyone. And I hope to come out and really talk to everyone and get that message out as far as what I believe that I can do and what I can do for the community. I feel like the community needs someone who's a little more approachable and someone who can talk to victims and law enforcement. I also believe that you need someone in there who can have a strong hand as far as leading a team of people, and I believe that I can do that. And so I appreciate everyone here, and I just hope that you come out and vote. And if you have questions for me, by all means, reach out. I'm pretty easy to find and easy to talk to. So I would be happy to answer any other questions that anyone might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynne. Richelle, it's your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you all also for coming out. I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. You just simply need to ask her some questions. My team is not her team. So who is your team going to be, Lynne? We had 4 murders, I think, in the first couple of months in 23 when we started. We get routine phone calls in the middle of the night. It's basically a legal pop quiz. How are you going to answer those questions, Lynn? In the middle of the night, 3 a.m. phone calls. If you don't have basic understanding of criminal law and criminal procedure, you can't be there for law enforcement because you can't answer their questions because you don't know how to do the job. This is what real life prosecuting is. It's hard. It is so hard. And I encourage my people the best I can because we are constantly on call. We are constantly being woken up. We do blood draws in the middle of the night. We answer difficult questions in the middle of the night. If you don't have experience, you're not going to be able to do those kinds of things. It's not like you can just prepare and then show up. I have 25, almost 26 years as a criminal law trial attorney. This is what I do. It's what I'm passionate about. The whole team is really good. We desperately want to work with the sheriff's office, but don't tell me it's not a little odd that we had 2 secret recordings back to back and then she files to run for prosecutor. I mean, we want to work with the sheriff's office. Do you want to know how it gets fixed like that? The sheriff's office gets an attorney that understands criminal law and criminal procedure and can advise them on how to fix these things. Because the only way I have found so far is they are not addressing the issues, and so I have to be transparent with the public. They get a different attorney, that can instantly change, and we are working with the sheriff's office again. So as I said when I introduced myself, I would appreciate your vote. If you have any questions, please ask. We are literally here for you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks you to both of you. We're going to be concluding the debates for the night. Let's give them all a big hand here. And again, thanks to Lake TV and Seven Springs Winery for allowing us to have this great venue. And important note, when you're leaving, you're going to go left